uncomfortable. You put me in a box. You want me to be your designable, but there's luminescence to me.
Hello, it's Alexis. Sorry I've got my torch on and stuff because it's quite dark in my room because I don't have any main light bulb at the moment. I've usually been filming my videos throughout the day, but it's a bit later. Well, it's not that late, but I'd say possibly like it's a slightly cloudy day, and also I always have my curtains closed. I usually do just because I like to, because I'm weird and emo. Anyway, today is going to be another story time video, and it's a slightly sort of more heavy one than my one before. I'm going to put a trigger warning on this because I'm going to be talking about some subjects that could potentially be upsetting to people. So trigger warning for sexual harassment, stalking, specifically online stalking, allusions towards rape and sexual assault, drugs, alcohol, and some mentions of racism too. Okay, so this story happened, oh yeah, and another trigger warning would be sort of like someone who's like much older, who's like in their 30s, like going after someone who's like only just 20, and like, yeah, just sort of like someone who's not exactly like going after someone who's a minor, but going after someone who is like only like just an adult and like they're much older and stuff. So, it all started, I was friends on Facebook with this person called Dylan, and one day I commented on one of his posts. I can't remember what it was about or anything, and I got a reply from someone who just asked me, "Excuse me, can I add you?" As in, like, add as a friend on Facebook. And like seconds later I received a friend request from this person. Now, a weird coincidence is that if you remember my last commentary video, the one before last, my one about the time I fell in love with a fuckboy, this person who added me had the same first name as the guy who I fell in love with at that age. So I'm going to give him the same code name. We're going to call this guy Tony. And so I get this friend request from Tony, and I'm a bit kind of apprehensive because he just seems like a bit eager and stuff, and so I left it for a few days. I didn't accept it right away. I was going to, again, I'm not picking my nose, I just have itches on my nose and it's driving me mad. Anyway, so, yeah, I didn't accept his friend request right away. I was just going to leave it and see what happened. And, like, a few days later, I can't remember how much later, I accepted the friend request. And not long after I accepted the friend request, I got a notification that somebody had posted on my timeline, and I clicked on it and it was Tony, and he posted a picture on my timeline of, it was his wrist or his hand, and it had a bracelet on it, and he was just like talking about this bracelet and saying like, "Oh, this is my bracelet," he was sort of like saying, and then he just kept commenting on it saying, "I hope we can be friends, please reply," or something like that. And it was just obvious he was just trying to get my attention. And then he said something, like, I can't really remember what it was, but I could just tell he was getting slightly kind of frustrated that I wasn't replying, so I did reply. And then in the end he ended up PMing me, and he just like, and he was really eager, like he would just type loads, be like, "Hi, I'm Tony," and he was like saying, "Oh, I hope we could I hope we can be friends, I hope we can talk shit together, you seem really nice," and things like that. And he told me some quite like personal things about himself, like stuff that I wouldn't tell someone who I just met, like if I was in that position. And he was just like telling me just like stuff that I would never ask of anyone, and just like really personal stuff, and I felt a bit uncomfortable. And like he started going on about my name, because like, okay, so Alexis isn't my birth name, I got it legally changed to Alexis. Please don't ask me what my birth name is, I don't really want to say, as it's quite personal to me and quite like full of pain. And so I was using a different name then, I'm not going to say what it is. And like, this guy was just obsessed with that name, and he was just asking about it and stuff like that, and like just asking me about my parents and stuff. And like, at one point he asked me where my name came from, and he asked me if it was of Native American origin, which it isn't. But like, one sort of like red flag to him not being a great person was he didn't say Native American, he said a slightly more like politically incorrect, racist word that we used to say for Native Americans, but that's not acceptable anymore. And like, obviously it wasn't acceptable back then, but like, people were way more problematic back then and didn't care so much about being good people. Anyway, I digress. And like, he was asking me about my maybe you could ask your mum and dad where your name came from, and I replied, yeah, my mum's dead. And he replied, oh, I'm sorry, well, she lives in you. And like, just really cheesy stuff like that, which I hadn't really come to terms with my sort of awkwardish relationship with my mum yet, but we'll maybe talk about that in another video. But just for that reason, I didn't really like feel comfortable with him saying that, and I just wanted, and like, I didn't really want him to say that and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, he was talking to me, and like, he just I was feeling quite uncomfortable, and he just like, he would just type quite a lot, and I just felt like he was pursuing me and stuff, and like, he just seemed really eager. And like, I am not attracted to people who are just really eager about pursuing me and who just like message me loads and who are just like, I kind of like, I don't like to be sort of like harassed like that. It makes me feel really uncomfortable. And just over the next sort of few weeks, I just noticed that like, he just seemed really obsessed with me. He would message me a lot, and whenever I would post a status, like 99.9999999% of the time, this guy would react to it and comment on it and interact with it in some way. Like, for example, I would talk about how I liked listening to Mariah Carey's music since my mum died, because I just feel like her music's quite good to listen to when you've been bereaved. And this wasn't long after my mum died, by the way, and I felt sort of like, yeah, I really liked listening to it. I love Mariah Carey, she's one of my favourite singers, another inspiration of mine. And he just like replied saying, oh, I really like Anytime You Need a Friend, which is actually a song I've actually come to dislike of hers. I don't really like her music box era too much, but sorry, I just keep rambling. Sorry, it's really annoying. Oh, I'm doing it again. Anyway, so like, there were just loads of examples like that where he would just make any excuse to comment on my posts, and ever since then I've always hated it when friends do that. Like, I've had a few friends since then who've done that, and I just associate it with this experience. And so he would also message me sometimes, and just like, he just made it so like obvious that he liked me and I didn't like him. At the time I was unrequitedly in love with somebody else, and like, I might go into that in another video, I might not, I don't know. And yeah, he one day sort of like messaged me and started talking about how he wanted to meet up with me. Well, before that one time, he literally messaged me and asked me where I lived, and I just sort of ignored the message. I didn't want to tell him where I lived, because seriously, I wouldn't have put it past this guy to have literally travelled to where I lived at the time and tried to find me. Like, seriously, he seemed like the sort of person who would do that. This guy was really weird. And yeah, he messaged me and he started talking about meeting up, and I didn't feel comfortable like meeting up just with him, so I suggested, why doesn't Dylan come along? And I said, why doesn't Dylan come along too, because I would have felt more comfortable if I had someone else there. But it was quite obvious this guy wanted to get me alone, and he started saying things like, you intrigue me, you're attractive, you're fascinating, and you're really funny, and I really like you, and stuff like that. And like, I had never given any indication that I may like him back, and I had sort of like always been quite like passive to his remarks and just like not really reacted. And like, oh yes, another thing, sorry, I keep remembering things. I had this Bitstrip account where I'd make little cartoons of myself, and they were kind of private, and one time I shared one of them on Facebook, and it was like my thing, and he shared it, and I said, excuse me, do you mind not sharing that? It's quite sort of personal to me. And the way he replied I found kind of weirdly manipulative. He was like, oh, I feel really bad now. Like, I kind of get it, like, he was sort of caught out and he was embarrassed. I understand that, I get like that too, but I just found the way he replied kind of manipulative, and I didn't really appreciate it. And so anyway, like, he was saying that like he found me really intriguing and attractive, and like, I was just really uncomfortable because, like, I don't like you, I don't see you that way, and things like that. I really wish after this all happened, I actually took screenshots of all our messages together, and I've deleted them since, and I really wish I had them because I'd insert them into the video. Like, I'd find out how to insert things into videos and I would absolutely insert them. And so anyway, yeah. And I then messaged Dylan and I told him, excuse me, sorry, I have a feeling your friend Tony has a thing for me. And then Dylan replied, oh yeah, he came on to me recently too. Now, Dylan was married, yeah, Dylan was married, and Tony knew this apparently, and just still came on to him, and apparently, oh yes, apparently, like, he was usually, like, drunk or, like, high when he did this. He even mentioned that he was doing weed when he would message me. Like, he'd message me weird things like, ooh, I'm so naughty, and ooh, weed messing with me, and things like that. And another thing that sort of, like, okay, this is going to get to the slightly dodgy part. One time, he just started messaging me and, like, saying, like, excuse me, can I ask you something? And he was, like, saying, like, you're not going to feel weirded out by it, and he, like, wouldn't get to the point and stuff. And he asked me, do you drink? And I was a little uncomfortable with that because, yes, I do drink sometimes, but I said, why? And he said, because sometimes I need a drink to sort of loosen up. And so, like, that made me worry that maybe he wanted to possibly get me drunk, so he hoped that if I was drunk, I'd be more likely to sleep with him. And I just want to get one thing straight. If you do that, if you get someone drunk because you reckon they're more likely to sleep with them, that's rape. Because drunken consent isn't consent. Like, your brain is clouded, it's all muddled up and stuff, and your judgments are not what they are when you're sober. So yeah, don't have sex with drunk people because they can't consent. And that just really made me panic and stuff. And so anyway, I was talking to Dylan about it, and yeah, Dylan was saying, like, oh, I'm pretty sure he's just really lonely and stuff. Yeah, he came on to me recently and he's drunk and stuff. And so not long after that, I get this message from Tony, and he's, like, really apologetic. He's saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't realise how young you were, because this guy was in his 30s and I was 20 at the time. I had been not a teenager for under a year, and also at the time, like, apparently Dylan had told him that I was in love with someone else. Like, I liked someone else, obviously I won't talk about that now, but still. And yeah, then, like, he was saying, like, I'm really sorry, I didn't realise that. And I was like, oh, has Dylan had a word with you? Because obviously I'd had a word with Dylan. And he said, yeah, he told me off a bit. He'd apparently told Tony how old I was, and apparently he told him off about drinking and stuff. And so, like, yeah, I was like, oh, that's okay. And later, and so after that, nothing sort of, like, really happened. But then what really sort of, like, stopped us being friends wasn't that, because I don't know why I didn't just delete him after that. I'd actually been talking to another friend about it once, and she'd been like, oh, maybe you should block him, but I didn't. So, like, I had this weird thing of I didn't want to hurt his feelings, and just I wondered if it would just be really awkward. And so basically later, this guy, Tony, I saw Tony had shared something which was a slightly offensive meme. It basically had, like, it was, okay, so this is a content warning for anti-black racism. Basically it said something like, a whole load of white soldiers fought in the American Civil War to like get slavery abolished, and like saying like, and even to this day, and they've all died, and even to this day they still haven't got a thank you. It basically implying that African Americans needed to say thank you to the white people who fought for them in the Civil War to free them from slavery, which is kind of messed up because as someone who's actually studied the Civil War, like, African American soldiers were actually used as cannon fodder, and they were just seen as disposable and stuff, and it's not like there wasn't a whole more history of racism after slavery in America, like there was segregation and stuff like that. And I called Tony out on this, saying like, actually, I was educating him, like, basically just about what I've just mentioned then, and I told Dylan about it, and then Dylan agreed with me, saying, yeah, that's really racist, and we both decided to unfriend him. and I blocked him too. And so yeah, that is the story of my Facebook stalker. It wasn't too dramatic, but I feel like there's a whole load of sort of what could have happened, what potentially could have happened, and I did just feel really uncomfortable throughout it. And I also don't really want any sort of smart-ass comments saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't be doing this, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, maybe you shouldn't accept people who you don't know. Like, I felt safe because Tony knew Dylan, and, like, no one can ever expect something like this to happen. Like, the victim is never asking for it. Please don't ever believe the victim is asking for it and that you should blame them and like, oh, these men, they just can't control their natural urges and so we have to make it easier for them. Like, please just stop. Like, I'm probably going to delete any comment I see that's like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this or something. Just don't do it, please. I've had like some comments from friends later saying like, oh, maybe you shouldn't accept friend requests from people I don't know, but like, yeah, please don't say that. Like, yeah, one time with a friend, she said that and just added a kind of sour note to the whole time later, and I just felt really shit, and I was just like, okay, so like it's my fault then. Yeah, so please don't do that. Anyway, sorry this has probably been slightly shorter than my previous videos. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'm trying to get better at all this YouTube stuff. It's all quite new to me. I'm still quite awkward on camera and I still kind of say like and quite a lot, yeah. Sorry, I kind of want to be natural, but sorry, I'm rambling. Anyway, I'll see you again on Sunday. Hopefully it'll be a commentary or maybe a makeup video. Okay, bye! Oh, and before you go, if you haven't seen any of my videos before, then the intro song at the beginning is my song. It's called Iridescent and it's available on platforms such as iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer, Google Play, MediaNet, Napster, Spotify, Bandcamp and places like that. Also, there's also a promotional single called Diva with that, and also follow me on Instagram at Alexis Gray Music and on Facebook just at Alexis Gray. That's my music page. Okay, bye!